Hi everybody, it's time to do our weekly video. Our theme this week is about frogs, so we're going to learn some different things about frogs. First of all, we're going to look at this book that shows the frog's life cycle. If you remember, we did the life cycle last week of the butterfly. So we, excuse me, watched the, in the book we saw where the eggs hatched the caterpillar and had the chrysalis around it then, and then turned into the butterfly. And remember that process is called metamorphosis. That means they change their life starting out one way and end it in a different way. And a frog's life is very much the same way. So we're going to read this book called Tadpole to Frog. A baby frog doesn't look like an adult frog at all. It starts off as a tiny egg in the water. When it's ready, the egg will hatch. Frog eggs hatch into little tadpoles. There's the little tadpole. These are all the eggs that they lay in the water. They all look like they have a little eyeball in the middle of it. Tadpoles are born with gills, which they use to breathe in the water. They swim by moving their tail back and forth. They eat and grow as they swim. They do not have legs yet. Looks more like a fish there, doesn't it? Soon, the tadpole will leave the water to live on land. Before it can, it will need to get bigger. Its lungs need to grow. The tadpole will use its lungs to breathe air. You can see the tadpole now has his arms starting and his legs. He still has a tail. Its front and back legs start to grow too. It will need legs to hop on land. There's his legs being longer now. The frog's gills disappear. Its tail disappears too. Now it has lungs to breathe and legs to jump. Finally, the frog can live out of water. It uses its strong legs to jump from place to place. The tadpole has turned into a frog. So that is the frog's life cycle, which starts from an egg and goes until he turns into a frog. So, do you know the difference though between toads and frogs? They both hop, don't they? But a frog has shiny, smooth skin, and they come in a lot of different colors, and it can jump further than the toad can. The toad is fatter and rounder, and it has bumpy skin, and they don't have to live near the water. And they don't jump as far. They have shorter legs, so they don't jump as far. So when you see a toad and you see that bumpy or warty looking skin, you know that's a toad and not a frog because they are more smooth. And frogs and toads are both called amphibians. An amphibian begins their lives as eggs in the water, and then when they're fully grown, they live on land. So then, lost my train of thought there. So after you read this story and listen to the story, you have a sheet of paper that tells you, that shows you the different parts of a frog's life. So you need to cut those out and put them in the right order. Remember, it starts out as the egg, then the tadpole, and then it starts growing those legs and arms. Some places call that a froglet, and then finally the frog. So hopefully you can put those back in the right order. So that is the frog's life cycle. Our next book is called Hungry Harry. This is one of my favorite frog books, so I thought I'd read this one to you today. So, Hungry Harry is written by Joanne Partis. Harry Frog was feeling hungry. "What's for dinner?" he asked his mom. "Well, I think you're old enough to look for your own food now," said Mommy Frog. "Terrific!" cried Harry, and off he leaped across the lily pond till he came to some tall reeds. There's sure to be something tasty here, said Harry, licking his lips. Sure enough, there was a delicious-looking dragonfly. Harry was just about to jump when the dragonfly flew off into the air. You can't eat me, she called. I'm much too quick for you. Harry was wondering what to do next when suddenly he saw a big, juicy caterpillar on a twig above him. Goody, goody, dinner at last, cried Harry. But when he flicked out his long tongue to catch it, the caterpillar laughed. You can't eat me, she said. My hairs would tickle your tongue. Never mind, I'll find something soon, said Harry. He bounced on until he met a scrumptious-looking snail crawling towards him. Yummy, yummy, said Harry. But when he reached it, the snail's head suddenly disappeared. You can't eat me, said the snail from inside its shell. I am much too clever. Harry was getting hungrier and hungrier. He was just about to give up and go home to his mom when he spotted a squirmy worm wriggling along. Now's my chance, cried Harry. But just as he was about to catch the worm in his big wide mouth, it slithered down into a wormhole. You can't eat me, shouted the worm. I'm too squiggly and squirmy. Harry felt very fed up. He would go home to his mom. But just as he turned to hop back, he saw something he'd never seen before. It didn't look too quick. It didn't look too tickly. It didn't look too clever. And it didn't look too squiggly and squirmy. In fact, it looked absolutely delicious. And what was more, there was enough for everyone. Look at all the bugs joined him for his picnic, didn't they? So he doesn't have to worry about the bugs. He can eat all that food. But do you know what frogs really eat? Do they really eat that kind of food? No, you're right. They don't eat that kind of stuff. Frogs eat lots of bugs. Small frogs eat insects like flies, mosquitoes, moths, and dragonflies. Medium frogs eat larger insects like grasshoppers and worms. Some frogs will even eat small snakes, mice, baby turtles, and even small frogs. Isn't that crazy? Do you want to eat a small frog? No, not me either. So the other thing I wanted to tell you about frogs was, did you know frogs can come really tiny like that? But there's even one frog that grows up to 1 foot. He's that big as a foot, which is about that big. That'd be a pretty big frog to find, wouldn't it? So when you get done reading this book, you have a puppet frog that you get to make in your packet. So hopefully you'll enjoy playing with your frog at home. So the next thing you're going to need to do is your last page for your capital letters. So isn't that exciting? We are all done with the letters now today. So you may have already done your last capital letter page, and that's just fine. But I thought you might want to see them next to each other so that you can remember what the capital and the small letter look like. So here's big S and little s. They are the same shape, aren't they? But when you see them on paper, the big S is going to stand up higher than the little s. Then we have letter T, big T and little t. They're almost the same, but not quite. The next letter is, I hope you're saying letter U, because that's what's next. So here's big U and little u. See how little u has that tail that you have to make the short little tail with it. So this one is just taller than this one. Next comes Vinny Vampire Bat and letter V. They are the same shape, aren't they? You just make one taller and one shorter. Next comes Willy Weasel. Letter W. Again, they look the same, but you make your capital W taller than your small w. Next is X. Xavier Fox, letter X. X marks the spot. And the capital X is taller than the small x. Then we have Yancey Yaks, letter Y. They're almost the same, but not quite. You can see with a capital Y, you're gonna make your V, a little V at the top, and then make that straight line. Whereas little v, remember you came over here and stopped, and then you come down under the line. And the last one is, who is the last letter, everybody? Are you saying Zeke the zebra, letter Z? Here is Zeke the zebra, letter Z. Am I showing you the right sides? So that is the same shape also, but you make this big Z from the top line to the bottom line. So those are your last letters. So that is the only 2 books that I'm going to read for you today. So hopefully you will get all your work done in your packet and have fun with some of it, and do some fun frog things this week while you're at home. So I hope to see you soon, and that's it for today. Bye.